lot of non-essential tangents, so I'll try to stay to the basics this time. A little background on me. I've always been a skinny guy. Always ate like crap, and one of those lucky people that could get away with it and never really gain that much weight. I have always had a hard time building muscle, and it was only until, about 2 years ago, a year ago, that I just started getting unhealthy, or feeling unhealthier. I wasn't sleeping well, my energy levels were down. My joints have always bothered me, but it got really bad within the last year. I wasn't, motivated throughout the day to work out. I wasn't working out at all. I would basically go to work and sit on my ass for 8 hours and then come home and do that for the rest of the night until I went to bed. I would sleep and not feel rested when I woke up in the morning, regardless of getting 8, 9, even 10 hours of restless sleep. And I just wasn't feeling well. So I tried to start eating healthier according to what the government tells us to do when we want to eat healthier, which is low fat, lots of whole grains, and it turns out to be pretty high carb. And it just got worse. My joints hurt more, I was more tired, I was moody, less happy, and the diet just wasn't working for me. I was eating lots of brown rice and healthy beans and lean meat, no saturated fat, and everything just got worse. It was last summer, before my parents came down to visit for a week. I actually, for the 2 weeks before that, I went gluten-free, just because I had been doing a lot of my own research and I thought I might have had celiacs. I felt a lot better when I went gluten-free, and then my parents came down and I ate like crap again and went back to feeling the same way. It was about 6 months after that until I found Mark's Daily Apple. Actually got me started on it. In the Primal Blueprint, I'm sure some of you have heard about this. He emphasizes a primal lifestyle, which is just like paleo. It's eating real food and staying away from the SAD diet, which I'll talk about. And I started feeling really, really good. I ate lots of meat, lots of seafood, eggs, veggies, fruit, nuts and seeds. And these are all foods that were around throughout the time that humans have been evolving and turning into the species that we are today. I don't like to get into the whole evolutionary basis of it. I think we need to use modern science to explain what makes us healthy and feel good. But it makes sense to eat what our species has been eating for millions of years, which is everything that's under the paleo list. The standard American diet, which conveniently it can be abbreviated as SAD, has only been around for about 10,000 years, which is pretty recent, evolutionarily speaking. Grains, legumes, and dairy didn't come around until agriculture started, which was 10,000 years ago. And that's also when rates of obesity and diabetes and heart disease and a plethora of other ailments came around. It wasn't before we really started making these a staple in our diet that people had these problems. Evolutionary humans were tall and strong, had big bones, all their teeth, and no signs of disease. And there's a lot of science that goes into behind how people figured that out. You're just going to have to take my word for it. Sugar is terrible to start, but it's really only been emphasized in the diet for the last 50 or 60 years, mostly because it's cheap and it makes stuff taste really good. But it also is responsible for a ton of diseases, most notably, which is everywhere, diabetes, which is also really linked to obesity. Too much sugar makes you fat. Eating fat doesn't make you fat, it's sugar. And the basis of this whole idea that fat is bad for us and cholesterol is bad for us is based on one study done in the 1950s, done by a guy named Ansel Keys. And he went to a bunch of different countries, and he looked at their heart disease rates, or their deaths from heart disease, and its relation to the percent of calories from fat in the diet, which I kind of set up the graphs that he made. The published research that he came out with showed data points that looked like this for both graphs, which, when you normalize, you can draw a line like this, showing that the more calories from fat that you eat, the higher the risk of death from heart disease is. And the same thing, the percent calories from fat that you eat, more fat equals a higher cholesterol level. He's textbook bad scientist, because he actually got data from 22 different countries, and the data points were all over the place, but he only chose to include the data points that proved his research and proved the hypothesis that he was working for. So, in essence, if you were to take out some of these dots and some of these dots, you could draw the opposite line, showing that the opposite was true. And this has all been proven. The name of the study was called the 7-Country Study, but he got data from 22 countries. So just in the foundation of the study, it was done wrong, and this study is where our government has gotten its information from to tell us to eat low fat in order to prevent heart disease. So there's two kind of conclusions we can draw from here, and it says that fat causes heart disease, or fat causes high cholesterol, and high cholesterol can cause heart disease, which is bad science, because these are two completely different results. Just because one might happen at the same time as the other one doesn't mean that this one causes that one. This is the difference between causation and correlation. They might be correlated, but that doesn't mean that they cause each other. So, basically, this is just wrong. Fat does not cause high cholesterol, and fat does not cause heart disease. That being said, we can be less scared of fat when you're eating, and our bodies prefer to get our calories and our energy from fat over carbohydrates, because we evolved, and a lot of people think that our brains became so powerful once we started eating the fat of other animals. And once you get down into it, we can function just fine as a species eating only fat and protein. Carbs are basically only a source of energy as far as that goes. Protein and fat are involved in, fat is in every single cell in your body. It's what makes up the border of every cell membrane. Protein is used for signaling, for structure, for muscle, and fat is used for a lot of structure, and hormones are made of fat, heart runs on fat. Long story short, we don't need carbs. We get all the energy we need from fat. So that's one of the basic tenets of this, is to stay away from sugar, because too much of it just causes disease. And I'm losing track, so the standard American diet is unhealthy for a lot of reasons. Grains and legumes contain lots of different nutrients, or anti-nutrients, that actually bind to the good minerals and vitamins that we want and prevent our body from being absorbed, or prevent our body from absorbing them. They also contain molecules that have been proven to actually punch holes in our intestinal lining. This causes things that shouldn't be in our bloodstream to enter the bloodstream, like different proteins in the grains, which closely mimic normal body proteins. When these proteins enter the blood, our body mounts an immune response to them, and they're so similar to some of the other proteins in our body, like the beta cells in our pancreas, that sometimes the body gets confused and attacks itself, which is how type 1 diabetes is caused. It's the body attacking itself because it thinks that it's something else. And that's because these chemicals have entered the bloodstream where normally, without grains, they wouldn't have done. Dairy, humans don't drink milk after infancy, and it's kind of for a reason. Dairy is inflammatory and is insulinogenic, which means there's a big insulin response. Your body releases a lot of insulin when you eat dairy. Just like sugar, it's the same effect. This insulin acts to clear the blood sugar out of your blood, but a lot of the time when you're eating too much dairy or too much sugar, it overcompensates. And it'll clear out too much blood sugar, which will send the message to your brain that you're hungry, which is why when you eat a high-carb meal, you're hungry half an hour later. And I'm sure everybody's been through this. When you eat bacon and eggs in the morning, I know personally I stay full forever, and a lot of other people are more satisfied when you eat protein and fat because there is no insulin response. Well, there's a smaller insulin response because the nutrients are being shuttled to your cells properly, and your body doesn't think that it still needs to eat. That's in addition to grains, legumes, and dairy being very low in nutrients. Dairy more so, but grains and legumes are pretty much nutritionally void. You can get all the vitamins and minerals that you need in your diet from what's under the paleo list. You don't need grains for anything. Obviously, the fake crap that we eat these days, the preservatives, the ingredients you can't pronounce, all the added sugar, however it may be described in the diet, we don't need and is not good for our bodies for a lot of different reasons that would take too long to talk about. Paleo is all about eating real food. That's all it comes down to, is eating the stuff that's been around for millions and millions of years. We had to breed. Corn is actually a grain and is a big reason why people are so unhealthy today, because it's really cheap. It can be turned into sugar through a bunch of different chemical reactions. And I mean, that's high fructose corn syrup, which is, if anybody that started looking at the ingredient list and the nutrition facts of the food they're eating, sugar, high fructose corn syrup, and gluten is in just about everything that we eat these days. And once you eliminate that from the diet, you basically reach all the goals that I wrote down here. Grains are very inflammatory. They contain a lot of omega-6 fats, which I won't get too far into, but basically we want more omega-3 fats and less omega-6 fats. Grains are extremely high in omega-6 fats. Pasteurized or naturally fed cows, chickens, and other kind of animals that are allowed to eat their natural diet and walk around, are very high in omega-3 fats. Same with fish, which is why fish oil is good. I'll have to talk about that at a different time because there's a lot to do with the omega-3, omega-6 balance. But a typical standard American diet, the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio is about